Hi there, my name is James Swallow. I'm the author of the Mark Dane novels and most recently Rogue. Rogue is the fifth book in my Mark Dane series, and in this novel, my hero and his partner Lucy Keys, ex-military sniper. Mark Dane is a former MI6 technician. He's what you might consider the guy in the van, you know, with the guy who's always like working on the keyboard when the hero's kicking in the door. Mark Dane is that guy, but he's been pushed into a hero's role. And in this story, they're facing off against a cabal of power brokers, a shadowy organization called the Combine. Rogue is the story where everything gets taken away from our heroes, where they lose all their cool toys, where everything gets destroyed, and they're basically left with the clothes on their back, and the entire world is chasing them down. It's a story about fugitives on the run, dealing with enemies at incredible odds, action-packed, fast-paced, high-octane, high-speed, low-drag. What does my writing routine look like? It doesn't look as good as it should, let's be quite honest about it. I wish I was a little bit more disciplined. Generally, I'm sitting in front of my computer by 9 o'clock and I work solidly through until 6. Maybe I'll take like an hour for lunch. Generally, the morning is me just kind of dealing with paperwork and emails and social media. Lunchtime onwards is me working at the coalface, drilling my way into the story, just going through it from A to B to C, and so on and so on. I'm not one of these kind of writers who jumps around the narrative. Some people I know like to start at the end, some people start in the middle. Not me. I start at the very beginning and I bang my head against the wall of the story until I'm finished. If I wasn't a writer, what would my dream job be? That's a good one. I mean, I think when I was a kid, you know, international assassin or astronaut were kind of at the top of that list. I'd love to have been a pilot if I could have had the skill set to do that. But I think if I wasn't an author, I don't know really. I think I'd definitely be a less happy person because it's great therapy for me. I don't think I could imagine a life for myself where I wasn't writing something. In real life, what's my kind of adventure? Travel. I love to see new places. I love to walk the territory of, you know, new cities and new countries and just see interesting new things. You tend to get into a rut if you stay into the same place. You think that everything looks the same, that everything smells the same as all the things that surround you. And it's only when you kind of step off a plane in a foreign land, you take that breath of air for the very first time and you feel that difference wash over you. I think that's invigorating. It's exciting, it's thrilling, and I love the opportunity to do that. What's the best thing about being a writer? The best thing about being a writer, the thing that for me personally never gets old, is walking into a bookstore and seeing my name on the spine of a book. I've been a reader my entire life, and it's just something's amazing about being able to walk into a bookstore and say, there's a story that I told. There it is up there on the bookshelf. People I'm never going to meet are going to read it. People are going to be touched by that story, entertained and thrilled by that story. Their lives, you know, are going to be lightened up a little bit, hopefully, by the book that I've created. And I love the idea that I can give something back to all the people out there in the world reading these stories, just the way that other readers have kind of given other writers have given something to me as I've been reading all through my life. If it speaks to you on a very, very personal level, you will connect to that story in a way that you can't connect with anything else, you know, and it doesn't work, I think, the same way with movies or TV with visual sort of thing. I think because books live inside your head so much, I think that the connection that you make is so much stronger. And I think that's why, you know, just reading kind of, I think, lives with us in a way, connects with us in a way that other medium does just don't. What's the hardest thing about being a writer? The hardest thing about being a writer is the loneliness of it. It is a very, very sort of solipsistic kind of existence where, you know, you're essentially locked in a room, coming up with stories on your own, having to try and figure out how all this stuff works, and not having anything but the inside of your own brain to kind of walk around. And I think that can become sort of, the focus of that can get too intense. And sometimes, you know, you find like you feel like you're very, very lonely and there's nobody else out there that you can talk to. That's not true, of course. The best thing to do, and I say this is a great piece of advice for any writer, I always say, find other writers that you can talk to, share those experiences. You have those moments where you're thinking, am I crazy? Is it just happening to me? And you can talk to another writer and they'll say, no, it's not just you, it's all of us. Make sure you don't have that isolation, because I think writers who get into that rut, it affects their work and it makes you kind of less happy as a person. 3 books that have influenced me. The 3 books that have probably been the strongest influence on me as an author, I'd start with Thunderball by Ian Fleming. There's a particular edition of that that has this photograph cover with a broken scuba mask on the front of it. And I remember that was the first James Bond novel I ever picked up and I ever read. And it kind of just detonated in my head, is the way that Fleming wrote. There's the sort of the depth and nuance of his narrative style changed the way that I read stories. And I think that's true of all of the other books as well. Is the next one I would say is Neuromancer by William Gibson, a science fiction novel. And again, that was reading that in the 1980s at the sort of the vanguard of the cyberpunk science fiction sort of wave. That just absolutely blew me away. He's got this amazing sort of laconic writing style, but it's hyper detailed, hyper real. And it kind of came to me at a time in my life when I was thinking, I wonder if I could be a writer. And then I read that and I thought, this is someone doing the job right. This is somebody firing all cylinders. This is the craft oozing off the page right here in front of me. And I was kind of daunted by it, to be honest. But I also looked at it and thought, maybe I could possibly do something like this. So that was very much an inspiration to me. And the other one I would say is something a little bit more lightweight, is The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy by Douglas Adams. That was a book that I used to read that every year in my teens. And it's just a slim, sort of funny kind of little bit of like science fiction. But the thing that's amazing about it is Adams has this really great kind of touch with language, and the kind of the craziness of these science fiction ideas is it's weirdly rooted in the mundane, but yet at the same time, the ideas he has are so huge and crazy, but he makes them feel real and personable and easily connectable to our lives. And it just amazed me that somebody could do that. And he has such a joy of language in his writing as well. And so I looked at that and thought, how can I tell stories that are kind of as stimulating as those have been? What's the best advice someone has ever given me about writing? I think the best advice I was ever given about writing was by another author, William King. And I met him right at the beginning of my career at an event. And he was introduced to me and they said, this is Jim, he's a new writer. And Bill's first words out of his mouth is he said, do you want some advice? And I said, yes, absolutely. Because he'd made a lot more money than me writing and he was very successful. And I was like, obviously anything you tell me is going to be useful. Please, sir, go ahead. And he said to me, you know, the way to make yourself a success as a writer is to find yourself a niche, find part of the story, part of the narrative world out there that nobody's gone to, and take it and make it your own. Or if they have done it before, do it in a way that puts your unique spin on it so that you bring people ideas, but it has your flavor as a writer. And it's kind of, it seems obvious when you say it out loud, you know, be yourself, find your thing and do your thing as well as you possibly can. It's obvious advice, but to kind of have it articulated like that was just kind of like a lightning bolt. And I was like, yeah, that makes sense. And I think I've always stuck to that, always tried to sort of, you know, bring my own unique voice to every story that I tell and try to find something that hasn't been done by somebody else, or if it has, give it something unique.